Hey friends, welcome to the very last video of 2023. These are the best of December recipes that I'm going to be sharing with you today. I have made these before on the channel, so I'm just going to reshare them with you because these are some of our favorites. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright you guys, today I am excited to share this recipe with you guys. This is my recipe for apple pie spiced ribs. These are so good and so easy. So we're going to start out with mixing the dry ingredients first. Got some brown sugar here, about a half of a cup. It's packed brown sugar. Just going to loosen that up a bit. And then I've got some chili powder. I'm going to add that in there. Some sugar. Apple pie spice. And in here I've got cayenne pepper, paprika, salt, pepper, and garlic. I'm going to add that in there. And I'm just going to mix this around, make sure everything is mixed together pretty well. And then I will grab my ribs. You can use any kind of ribs that you like or have on hand. Today I've got some baby back ribs that I had in the freezer that I need to use up. So that is what I'm using today. All right. So I'm going to set this stuff here aside because we're done with all of that. Okay, so I've got some neutral oil here. I'm just going to spray some of this over both sides of my ribs. And this is just going to help the spices stick. Now I'm just going to evenly distribute this spice mixture all over these ribs and kind of pat it into the ribs. I don't want to rub it into the ribs. I just want to pat it. Make sure they're all nice and evenly coated. I'm just going to flip these over and do the other side. Oh my gosh, I love the smell of apple pie spice. It smells so good. I'm just going to take some of this spice that fell down and kind of pat it onto the sides so the sides get a little bit of flavor. Now I'm going to keep the ribs like this where the bones are facing up, and then I'm just going to wash my hands, get all of this spice mixture off, and then we'll wrap these up. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of move these around a little bit so they're kind of this way on the pan, so I can wrap them up evenly. Now I'm just going to wrap them up where it's easy for me to get into, kind of tightly pack them in like that. And I've got my oven preheated to 325 degrees. I'm going to pop these in the oven, and I'm going to cook these for about an hour and 30 minutes to an hour and 45 minutes, just until the meat is completely cooked through, it's tender, and it's falling off the bone. Alright you guys, so these ribs have been cooking for an hour and 45 minutes. I just took them out and removed the foil from over the ribs. And now I've just got some barbecue sauce here, and I'm going to spread this barbecue sauce all over these ribs on the one side. And I've got my oven preheating to 450 degrees, and that is going to help set this barbecue sauce on these ribs. I want to make sure I get the sides of the ribs as well. And these ribs smell absolutely delicious. The apple pie spice has perfumed this house, and it just smells so good. So these are pretty well basted in that barbecue sauce. I'm going to put these back in the oven for about 5 minutes or so just to set that barbecue sauce. Then I'm going to take them out, flip them over, baste them again, put them back in the oven for another 5 minutes or so, and then these will be done. Oh my goodness, these things look so good. I cannot wait. I'm going to let these sit and cool down for about 5 minutes or so. I made some broccoli salad to go along with this, and I will show you my plate. Here is my plate. You guys, these are so good. If you are looking for a new recipe for your barbecue ribs, this one is a great recipe. It's so good and so easy to make. But I paired this with some broccoli salad. I just found a random one online and made that one because I had all of the ingredients. But all right, moving on to the cranberry Dutch oven loaf. I've got 3 cups of flour in here, and I'm just going to add some salt to this, probably about 2 teaspoons, which is about a good 2 pinches, but you can measure it, of course. And I'm just going to kind of mix that together. Make sure all of those ingredients are combined. Now again, I'm not going to be cleaning this stand mixer because we're making bread in it and it's pretty much all the same ingredients. So I'm just going to add the flour and the salt in there. I've got some orange juice here and it's at room temperature. And I've got a cup of water that I'm going to add some yeast to. I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons of sugar to this. And about 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, which is 1 packet, of course. That should be good. I'm just going to give this a little mix, and like the other two, I'm just going to mix this till the sugar dissolves, which is about 10-15 seconds, and then set this to the side and let that yeast start to activate and get nice and foamy. So I've also got some honey here, and I'm going to clean this up while my yeast activates so we have a little bit more room to work. Alright you guys, so I've cleaned up, my yeast is activated, and I've kind of switched you up here a little bit. But I've got my flour and my salt in here, and to that I'm going to add in my yeast mixture. And I'm going to dissolve my honey into my orange juice here, just because my honey is a little bit solidified. So I'm just going to dissolve that in here so it'll be easier to incorporate into the flour. But if yours is liquid, then you can just add it right in. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and add in my orange juice. So now we're just going to get this started. I'm going to start out on low. Once it comes together, I will turn the speed up to about 2 or 3 and let it go for about 5 to 7 minutes. Alright, this has been going for about 7 minutes, and I ended up having to add in about a 1/2 cup of flour to my dough here. But you can add as much or as little flour as you need for it to come together. So I'm just going to take this out, and I'm going to shape this into a ball as best as I can. Kind of knead it a little bit. Shape it into a ball, and I've got another bowl here that I've got some avocado oil in, and I'm just going to add a little bit of tension to this. If you put your palms down like this and kind of pull it towards you, it will create a little bit of tension on the top of the dough, and it will make it a little bit more smooth. This is a technique that I use all the time when I do work with sourdough, but it works with any kind of bread. Alright, so I've got my bowl here. I'm just going to plop that down in there, get it coated on that one side, and flip it over. Make sure it's all nice and coated on that bread. And I'm just going to put some plastic wrap over the top of this, label it like the other two so I don't get it mixed up with the other two loaves of bread. And then I'm going to let this rise for about an hour and a half. Alright, so I've got my cranberry dough here, or my dough for my cranberry bread. And we're going to do the exact same. We're going to uncover it, roll it out on a floured surface, and then we will add our cranberries. We're going to put that right there. Add a little bit of flour to the top. And grab my rolling pin here. We're going to do another rectangle shape. That looks pretty good. And I've got some whole cranberries here, but you can certainly do dried cranberries. So I'm just going to do 3/4 of these cranberries on this side, and we're going to do the exact same that we did earlier with the cheddar jalapeno bread. We're just going to kind of spread them out a little bit, and then we're going to fold the dough over like this, and this side over, and kind of smush it out a little bit. And then we're going to add the remaining cranberries to the top as best as you can. You might have to kind of press them down into the dough for them to stick. Just be careful because they will pop. That looks good. So now I'm just going to roll it up like a cinnamon roll, as we did with the cheddar jalapeno, getting it a tight roll as best as you can. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of roll this together like we did with the cheddar loaf and create some tension on the bottom of that. So again, I've got my bowl here, and I'm just going to add my bread dough to my parchment paper here, and we're just going to kind of stretch these together and kind of fold and pinch these together, these ends, so that way they kind of stick. Okay, I'm going to add this to my bowl here, and we're going to cover this with some plastic wrap and let this rest for about 30 minutes and let it do its final rise. And I've got my cranberry loaf here, and I'm going to carefully add this to my hot pan and pop this in the oven. Same temp, same amount of time with the lid on. And we're going to cook this 30 minutes covered, 10 to 12 minutes uncovered. Here is this delicious cranberry loaf. It is so good. I like to serve this with the blueberry vanilla goat cheese, but you can serve this however you want. Alright, so now we are going to move on to the Italian hot chocolate. This is one of my favorite hot chocolates. It is so good. It is like warm pudding. Absolutely delicious. So to my measuring cup here, I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of milk, some sugar and cornstarch, and I'm just going to mix that together until it is well combined. Now I'm just going to add in my salt and my unsweetened cocoa powder, and I'm just going to mix that really well until it's nice and combined. Cocoa powder is a little bit of a pain to mix into cold liquids, so just be patient. It will come together. Just keep whisking it. And with the magic of YouTube, it is combined. So now that this is combined, we're going to head on over to the stove. Now we are ready to get this hot chocolate started. It is going to be so good. So to my saucepan here, I'm going to add in 1.5 cups of milk, as well as my cocoa powder cornstarch mixture. And then I'm just going to give that a good whisk together, make sure it's all nice and combined. And then I'm going to add in the remaining milk that is left in the measuring cup. I think it's about 1/2 cup. Once you've added that remaining milk, you're going to give that a little whisk. You're going to turn your heat to medium-low, and you're going to bring this up to a simmer. And you're going to let it simmer for, I don't know, about 5 to 8 minutes, just until that mixture starts to thicken up. Now that that chocolate mixture has thickened up slightly, you're going to add in your chocolate chips. You can do semi-sweet chocolate chips, dark chocolate chips. You can do chocolate chunks, chopped chocolate, whatever your little heart desires. You can add that in there. And then you're just going to mix this together until all of that chocolate has melted. Now that that chocolate has completely melted and it is nice and smooth, you are now ready to ladle this heavenly deliciousness into cups. It's so good. So go ahead and ladle that into your desired cup and top it however you like. Alright, you guys, here is this wonderful cup of Italian hot chocolate. It is so good. And I topped it with those homemade marshmallows. I cannot rave enough about this. It is so good. I think this hot chocolate and Mexican hot chocolate are my two favorite in the entire world. They are so good. We're going to be making my brown rice congee with kale and bacon. It's going to be so good, and if you're feeling under the weather, it's going to make you feel so comfortable. So I've got my pot here, and to my pot I'm going to add my 10 cups of water, or 10 cups of chicken broth. I'm going to add in 1.5 cups of brown rice. I've got 2 green onion stalks. I'm going to add those in. We'll remove them later. I've got 2 pieces of, well, it's 1.5 inch piece of ginger that I just cut in half. I'm going to add those. And I've got 1 chunk of garlic. It's a pretty big garlic clove, but I'm going to add that in. I just smashed it. Give that a little stir. I'm going to add some thyme, about 1/2 teaspoon. And since there's salt already in the chicken broth, I'm not going to add any salt, but I am going to add some pepper. Okay, so I've got that in there, and I'm going to turn this on to about medium-low. If you have a gas stove, it's about 2 or 3. I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and I'm going to let this cook for about 1.5 hours. It takes a pretty long while to cook, but that rice has got to cook down and break down and get nice and delicious. So all you want to do is just come in here every few minutes or so, just give it a stir, so that way the rice does not stick to the bottom of the pan or the pot. But if you don't like brown rice, you can certainly use wild rice or some kind of white rice. So I'm just going to let this cook down, and I'll see you back and I'll show you what it looks like when it gets done. Alright, so while the brown rice congee is finishing up, we're going to go ahead and make the topping to go on the top of the congee. So I've just added a little bit of olive oil to my pan, and we're going to add some bacon. And we're going to cook this bacon down until it gets nice and crispy, and then we're going to remove it from the pan. It shouldn't take about 8 to 10 minutes. Alright, so this bacon is nice and crispy. I am just going to remove this bacon to a bowl that's lined with paper towel just to drain off some of that bacon grease. Now I'm not going to get rid of this bacon grease. I'm going to scoop some of it out and put it in a bowl. And I'm going to let it cool and add it to the rest of my bacon grease in the refrigerator. You don't need all of this grease, but you do want a little bit of it. But if you're feeling frisky, you can add all of, keep all of it in there. That's up to you. But I'm going to remove a good majority of it. All right, so now I've got a onion that I've just got diced up. I'm going to add it to this grease, this hot pan. And I'm going to season this up with a little bit of salt and pepper, just to help sweat those onions out. We'll season it again later. So I'm just going to cook these onions down until they get nice and tender. It should take about 4 to 5 minutes. Alright, so these onions have cooked down and they're nice and tender. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of butter. I'll let that melt down. And I've got some kale here. It's about 8 cups of kale. And I'm just going to add it directly into my pan. I'm going to season it with a little bit of salt and some pepper. And I'm going to add in just a little bit of red pepper flakes. This is certainly optional. You can leave them out if you don't want heat. Just give this a little stir, and we're going to let this cook down for about 5 minutes so that kale can wilt down and get nice and delicious. All right, this kale has cooked down nicely and it smells so delicious. So I've got 2 cloves of garlic here. I'm just going to add those in there. And I'm just going to cook this down for about 30 seconds to a minute, just until that garlic is fragrant. Shouldn't take long at all. All right, that garlic is nice and fragrant. I smell it. So we're going to go ahead and add in the bacon that we cooked earlier. And just give this a little mix, and then this is ready to go. The only thing we have to do now, the congee has about 5 more minutes left, and then we will just remove the garlic, the ginger, and the onion, and then that will be ready to serve. I'm just going to cut the heat off, let this hang out here while that finishes up, and then we will plate this up. All right, so I am just here fishing out the ginger, and the onion has pretty much kind of cooked into the rice, and that's fine. I have yet to find the garlic, so I'm just going to go ahead and try to find the garlic. If not, it's fine. And then we will ladle this into bowls, top it with that delicious bacon and kale topping, and we'll get this served up. All right, you guys, here is this delicious bowl of brown rice congee with kale and bacon. I just topped it with some chopped parsley, some fried garlic, sriracha, and some sesame seeds, and it was so good. Very, very comforting. We're going to be cooking up some delicious holiday goodies. We're going to start off with making one of my favorites. It is my spice cake. It's very easy. You can do this in one bowl if you want to, but we're going to do this in 2 bowls today. I've already got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. I've got a 9 by 9 inch pan greased, lined, and ready to go. You can also do this in 3 6-inch cake pans. So I've got some flour here. This is about 1 3/4 cup of flour. I've got some baking powder, baking soda, and some salt. Add that in there. And in here, I've got all of my spices. I've got some cinnamon, ginger, allspice, cardamom, nutmeg, and some cloves in here. So I'm just going to add all of that in there. And we're just going to give this a little mix. Make sure everything is nice and combined, mixed really, really well. Because you do not want to bite down in a chunk of baking soda. All right, so we're just going to set that to the side, and we are going to work on the wet ingredients. All right, so in here I've got some brown sugar. I've got 1 cup of brown sugar. I've got some butter here. It's already starting to cool back down, which is fine. It will work just fine. So I'm going to add that in there. And in here I've got some whole milk and some buttermilk. You can also do whole milk and sour cream. So we're just going to add that in there. I've got some molasses in here. Whatever style of molasses is your favorite will work just fine. I'm going to add that in there. And I've got some eggs. I've got 3 eggs. Now you want to make sure all of your ingredients when you're baking are at room temperature, so that way they mix well together. And I've got some vanilla. Now when it comes to vanilla, there are no rules, and I will not judge you. You add however much vanilla you want. I'm going to do about 1 tablespoon. And then we're just going to mix this together until it's nice and combined, and those eggs and brown sugars all mixed together. Alright, so I've got my wet ingredients combined, and I'm just going to add them to my dry ingredients. Okay. And I'm just going to mix this until it is just combined. You don't want to overmix your batter. Then it'll get kind of tough and dense. And we want a nice and light and fluffy cake. So just stop mixing when everything comes together. All right. So I've got my pan here, and I am just going to add this into my pan. Typically I do a 3-layer cake, but I'm just going to do it in a 9 by 9 inch cake pan. It'll turn out just fine. We're just going to have a 1-layer cake today. Okay. I'm just going to spread this around, make sure it's evenly spaced in this pan. Reaches all of the sides. Make sure all of that batter is in there. My hands are clean, by the way, I just washed them. Alright, so I've got this in the pan. I've got, like I said, I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. And I'm going to cook this for about 25 to 30 minutes. You can test this and stick a toothpick in the center of the cake. If it comes out with a few moist crumbs, you're good to go. Alright, you guys, I'm going to let this cool in the pan. It's been cooking for about 30 minutes. So I'm just going to let it cool in the pan for about 5 minutes. And then we're just going to flip it out onto this wire rack to cool completely. And then we will make our vanilla cream cheese frosting. Alright guys, so I've got my cake here. It's cool, completely cool. And I've got it sitting here on my little round cake pan. I need to get a square one. If I can find a square one, I need to get one of those. But I'm going to set that to the side. And now I'm going to make some cream cheese icing. Very simple. I've got a stick of butter, some cream cheese, and I'm just going to kind of blend this together until it's nice and creamy. And then we'll add some salt, powdered sugar, and some vanilla. Alright, so I've got that all creamed together. And I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla. You can add as much or as little as you want. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons or so. And I'm going to add a little bit of salt, and this is just to counterbalance the powdered sugar, and you're going to add, I don't know, about 3 cups of powdered sugar, give or take. It really depends on how much butter and cream cheese you add, really. So I'm going to add a little bit of that, and I'm going to blend this up, and then when this gets all nice and creamy and smooth, we'll go ahead and frost our cake. Alright, so I've got my frosting done. I added about 1.5 cups of sugar. You can certainly add 3 cups if you want to, if you're making a larger cake. I'm just going to do 1.5 cups for this size cake. So I'm just going to add all of my frosting to the top. I've got an offset spatula, but you can certainly do this with a spoon or a butter knife. And I'm just going to frost the top. I'm going to go out to the edges, kind of make some swoops. Now you can make this frosting a different color if you want. You can do any color, food coloring you like. That is completely up to you. But I like the rustic look of just the frosting in the cake, and it is absolutely delicious. You can also add some spices to this. I've done cinnamon. I have done like a mixture of cinnamon, nutmeg, and allspice. Just really depends on your flavor and what you're going for. But this is what the cake looks like. And I will cut me a slice of this after dinner, and I'll show you what it looks like when I cut into it. Okay, you guys, so I've gone ahead and cut me a slice of cake, and this cake is absolutely delicious. If you love spice cake, you're going to love this one. The cream cheese frosting is slightly sweet. You get more of the flavor of the cream cheese, and then it pairs so well with the cake itself. It's just a perfect balance of flavors. Alright, you guys, this is the final video of 2023. My December favorites. These recipes were absolutely delicious. I will leave the link to my blog down in the description box below, so you can check out every single one of my recipes. They are all on the blog. But I want to take a second and thank all of you for continuing to grow this channel and support this channel. You all mean so much to me, and I cannot wait to continue to grow this channel in 2024. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful new year, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.